Here, welcome on behalf of SALISES and IGDS. We're really quite pleased to host and be a part of this really important conversation. We join forces with SALISES to share concerns about gate reform in relationship to national and regional development and thinking about the future of higher education. I'm grateful for this opportunity to continue the conversations and debates on gate reform that have continued since the August announcement. Students and concerned citizens have led a critical response to gate reform and continue to push for answers and clarifications on the new policies. Education remains a priority because, to put it simply, it is one of the greatest ways we can invest in our future. And students must be at the center of decision-making about higher education. Thus, many of us remain concerned about equitable access to higher education, given the economic crisis and neoliberal policies that dominate regional and global politics. Sustainable development models ought to be grounded in reclaiming independence and defining priorities on our own terms, as economist Carrie Levitt asserts through her collaborations with White Best, and as Caribbean feminist scholars and activists have long argued. The region is in need of decolonization across our institutions, especially education. National and regional development needs are too often defined and dictated through neo-colonial structures and dependency capitalism, which increase poverty, structural inequalities, and cuts to social services, healthcare, and education. Trinidad and Tobago has been, or was, a beacon for Anglophone Caribbean in terms of supporting higher education. But this will change with gate reform and other budget cuts that we know are inevitable. How do we prepare for these changes? To that end, questions posed for this forum include: what is the outlook for higher education in Trinidad and Tobago? What are the implications of the gate reform? Is it useful to invest in higher education during times of economic crisis? Who is most impacted by gate reform and why? How do we define development and who determines national development needs? What is the place of UWI in national and regional development? Is higher education a right or a privilege? Our panelists for today's forum will offer their perspectives on these questions and provocations. Given the cuts and changes in GATE, we know that many people across Trinidad and Tobago have been and will be affected. The questions we discuss today, I hope, will offer some new insights and encourage us all to demand responses and action. As I understand it, the final report from the GATE task force has yet to be made publicly available. The National Development Human Resource Needs has not been updated since the GATE reform. The last updated document was July 2014. Questions then remain: what are the priority programs for development which would be funded by GATE? And questions linger about what the mains test will be and how it will work practically. It is vital for us to think through how these decisions are made, the long-term implications, who is affected most, and what areas of development will be prioritized as national development needs. One of the most drastic cuts has been covered in the news and raised by the Equal Opportunity Commission, that being persons over 50 are no longer eligible for GATE. This took immediate effect and has serious implications for many people who have not been able to attend university in their youth because of family obligations, lack of resources, etc., but are able to at 50 or over. In my experiences teaching here for the past 2 years, we have many returning students who are 50 and over, most of them women, who rely upon GATE for the opportunity to complete degrees and participate in the dream of higher education. These issues and many more were raised last year when the GATE task force was holding their meetings and consultations. In particular, the UWI Socialist Student Conference, formed on campus in 2015, has been one of the only student organizations to publicly respond to GATE reform, and they plan several events and a campaign in August calling on the GATE task force to engage student needs sufficiently before making final decisions. I want to take a moment and applaud the great efforts of this group and determination of these students to assert their ideas and their needs. We are at a critical juncture of social, economic, political, and ecological crises across the region and indeed the planet. I believe that the purpose of higher education is to create space for people to participate in social change and development. This also means, for me, a particular commitment to social justice and education as feminist praxis. I've been an educator and teacher for 16 years, and during that time I've been witness to the defunding and devaluing of education across the region and many parts of the world. This issue of equitable access to higher education cuts at the heart of what we mean by development and regional growth. I grew up in poor and working class communities in the Bahamas with my grandmother who never attended secondary school, and with my mother who only went up to Form 4. I made it to Form 5, took my GC, O-levels, and left high school and started working at 16. They expected me to do well in school. They valued education as a way to better oneself and get out of poverty. Because of my mother and my grandmother's insistence on education as the way, as a little girl, I dared to dream that I could be something other than poor, and that maybe one day I would leave Nassau and travel. When I found out there was a thing called university, I wanted to go, even though there was no money for that. I dreamed, I worked hard, and took advantages of opportunities as they came my way, knowing that they came with a price and that some of these had to do with my light skin, mixed race blackness, and silence about race and class. And others came when I stopped being silent. I was the first in my immediate family to attend college and then go on to graduate school. My social and economic mobility, migrating for higher education opportunities in the United States, travel for my research and creative work and scholarship over the years, and quite literally, my survival was mediated through education and all that it has afforded me. The critical lens and frameworks to better understand and also change the world, grounded in the Caribbean feminist regional and decolonial vision of our future. Education indeed is my liberation, and now teaching and writing are my weapons, and I wield it for change and progress inside and outside the university. In the tradition of Paulo Freire, I believe as educators we should be invested in praxis, reflection, and action upon the world in order to transform it, a humanizing pedagogy. In the words of feminist bell hooks, I see education as a practice of freedom and transgressing boundaries that support and deconstruct systems of domination. Our work extends beyond the university, and the change-making and decolonial critical thinking we facilitate here can be the means of our survival as a region, as human beings, for future generations and the earth. And so I say that in an opening to get us started and to seriously think about what are we going to do for higher education that is deeply connected to, I think, all of our survival. And before we start with Dr. Conrad, I want to show briefly what some of the students did at the UE Socialist Conference over the course of their campaigning. So just to show you these and have us grounded in what some of the students wanted, what they saw as important for us to talk about when we thought about gay reform. And this one in particular. In an economic recession, the struggle is not only to develop the economy, it is also about imagining who we are as a society and what kind of society we would like to live in. And so on that note, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Darren Conrad, lecturer with the Department of Economics here at UWI. Dr. Conrad, come up for us. Thank you so much.